We're live.
What is this one in the middle saying?
Welcome to live chat.
There we
That's
go.
what it said on YouTube.
Well, we are live and we are back. It is good to see you. It is Thursday Night Live.
Tuesday
Night.
But it feels like Thursday already.
I don't even know. It's Tuesday Night Live.
It's been a long day, Dean. I'm not gonna lie.
It has been a long
I would
day.
agree with you, bro.
Long day, but a good day. Beneficial day.
However, can we all just do one of these? Because we got the Monday Night Live voice back.
Yeah,
you went
okay.
for it. You
I
were
went
thinking
for
of the
it.
voice and you forgot what day it
Here
was.
it is.
Here
Monday
we are.
Night Live. Well, we are excited to be back. This is the lovely Kay Semmens. I'm Dean Nixon. We are coming to you live from TurningLeaf Health and Wellness out of sunny St. George, Utah. And we are super stoked. As always, we are working very hard to bring to you topics that are life coaching, personal development, personal growth, topics that will help you progress and grow. And hopefully things that you'll talk about around the dinner table or talk around the water cooler.
The water cooler.
As Kate would say. And really things that will help enhance your life. We are very excited and very grateful for a lot of the comments we've been getting both around town as we roam through the stores and we get stopped, as well as in the chats and emails that we're getting. We're very grateful for all of that, and thank you for showing the love.
Yes, absolutely. And right off the bat, I'm just going to wish everybody a wonderful week of holiday stuff. Wherever your religious, spiritual preference is, right? There's so much going on this time of year.
Holiday spirits.
Whatever it looks like,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So we hope from Turning Leaf to you and your loved ones that you find a lot of connection, a lot of joy, that you're able to manage all of those things. Staying in intention. Go back and look at our Thanksgiving live if you need some reminders about different ways to navigate some holiday stuff. But from our heart to yours, we just wish you the most very merry of holidays.
Absolutely. Well, tonight we wanted to jump into a topic that is really critical, and it's one that's been kind of weighing on our hearts, not weighing down, but weighing on our hearts quite a bit. And it's something that really impacts a lot of our clients and a lot of the people that we work with, either through our group work, our seminars, individual sessions, etc., that we're doing. And it affects me, and I know it affects you as well. It affects every human being, which is our self-dialogue, our inner dialogue, our self-talk. And I couch it that way because there's different levels and layers to it. So most of the time we're always hearing about it, your negative self-talk.
Right.
But it's your inner dialogue. It's that inner voice that not your inner voice, your spiritual compass voice or inner voice, but the voice that's running right now while I'm talking to you. There's the other one that's going on in the background. That's what what we want to talk about today. Yeah.
And particularly, I love that you brought up the variety of the chatter, right? That inner voice gives to us inside our head. But particularly today, we want to speak about when it gets dangerous, right? Like, I love how in seminars you describe it as the dangerous neighborhood, right? Like that our imagination, our mental space can oftentimes be the place that we get mugged the most, right? You're walking out to your car and some guy comes and hijacks you, or gal. I'm not gonna sexually preference that one, right? It can be either one, but it's in your mind, right? Not in real life.
Right.
And how more than anything, I feel like in today, there's a lot of interesting language around that, right? Like, and almost some making it okay that we talk to ourselves that way, right? Like to me, it gets into some dangerous areas that way.
Yeah.
Instead of working to view ourselves differently, create that self-talk that sounds differently, that's more helpful, that's more positive, more loving to ourselves.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%.
Tripped over all of that, but
it was wonderful.
Thank you.
I loved all of that, even the funny parts. But it's where our inner dialogue is really coming from, and this is what you're alluding to, is really our understanding of ourselves. And our understanding of ourselves today is very conflicting, very confusing, and it's very dynamic day to day. And so I think about it because as I'm, got gray hair now, I'm a little bit older, and I do think about when I was younger, even 30 years ago. I think about how different life was and the way that information was coming at us, the global connection that we have now that we didn't have even 25 years ago. The social media, where it's so easy to get on social media, and all of these things that we're kind of engaging in and partaking of and participating in are really giving us an understanding of who we are. And we're using it to gauge who we are, how we're showing up, who we're showing up as. And for example, one of the things that I've seen that's been a very interesting dynamic recently is the body dysmorphia issue that we run into. So when I started my career back in 1990, body dysmorphia, for the most part, a good large percentage affected mainly women. It was a issue that mainly affected young women and older women in their adulthood, and it had a lot to do with how they felt about who they are. Now, today, 2022 going into 23, we're seeing an increasingly large amount of men, young men that are struggling with body dysmorphia. So that's an example of what I'm talking about, in the sense that things have changed, that change our understanding, which in turn affects our inner dialogue.
I could not agree more. So let's talk about the mind for a minute, shall we? If you've been hanging out with us for any amount of time, you know that I do this course. It's called Soul Discovery.
Yes.
And in the Soul Discovery, we talk about how our soul is composed of three main parts of us, right? Our mind, our will, and our emotions. And this mind space that we're talking about is the most active in that composition, right? It's the one that kind of really governs and guides the rest of it,
right?
So to speak, right?
Yeah.
Like, particularly when we have an imbalance of it. And so I love this space that we're in today. It's a place that Dean and I love to nerd out like crazy about together, talking about the brain, how it functions, our mind, and all of those things, because it's all different.
Yep.
They're different parts of you, right?
Yep.
But I would agree. I think that's really fascinating that you brought in that little piece of how things have shifted in us as a society because of our evolution, right? And our movements forward. It creates some different stuff for us to take a look at. And so we're really on the search to help you and your neighborhood today.
That's right. And I do want to note as well, I'm not saying that things are getting worse, because they're not. They're just getting different.
Right, it's evolving.
So the issues, 30 whatever years ago it was, I'm going on 33 years ago, when I started in mental health, the issues aren't worse, they're just different. And I think we need to clarify that, because a lot of times people are like, oh, the world's getting worse, things are getting worse, et cetera, et cetera. And that in and of itself adds to the negative self-talk, which adds to the fear, which adds to the anxiety, which doesn't help the problem. So I do want to clarify, I'm not saying things are getting worse, they're just different. And so the issues that we're constantly facing as human beings. And I always use, examples of, if you don't believe me, then go back and take history into consideration. I go back to Marcus Aurelius back in 900 AD, and the issues that he's talking about in his thoughts and processes, which is an amazing compilation of work, you will find he's talking about the same stuff. Like, it's very applicable to where we are today. So if those issues were happening then, they're still happening now. It doesn't mean the world's getting worse. It just means it's different. So our understanding of ourselves affects our inner dialogue.
Yes.
And so what we really need to work on is, what is our understanding of ourselves? So, it does make you wonder, like, how do we look? Where are we looking for our identity? So as a woman, and coming into the world as you do, where are some of the pieces that impact you, like impact in a healthy and in an unhealthy way that play into your understanding of yourself, would you say?
I love this. I'm going to skip back in time to answer the question as well.
Please.
Just in my own experience, because that's all we have.
Right.
Is our own experience to speak from. And then also the observation that I have in others. So prior to really taking accountability for my mental and emotional health and starting down this whole life path, right? Because where I get my identity from, or like I like to call it, my mirror, right? Like where I'm looking at to get my mirror. Did you guys like my holiday nails, by the way? You're welcome.
Just distracted.
Squirrel. They're different, right? Some of the spots are still similar, I would say, but when I have taken accountability for that, it shifted that. So prior to doing a lot of the work that I've done, I would say very, very easily that the way that I would try to mirror myself or look against the world to kind of position myself in that would be through television, right? Through beauty magazines, a lot, like standing, like you don't see a ton anymore because mostly it's like recipes and stuff now, or a Life magazine that's like, hey, this is what was happening when the Beatles were like hip. They're still hip, by the way. But like used to be like big rows and rows of magazines as you're like checking out at the grocery aisle, right? With beautiful people in Hollywood and all the icons and stuff. So I would say, physically speaking, that's where I would position myself that way. And then kind of mentally and emotionally, it comes for me in places that are more close. Because it's difficult to do that with, quote, celebrities, right? Like, we don't really know where they're at emotionally unless they have like some big Britney Spears moment and they shave their head, right? Like, we don't really see them. We see their image. So all I could like do was gauge myself on that. And then from there, it was, looking at my peers and kind of getting a perspective of who I was mentally, emotionally, even spiritually in my culture, the predominant religion that I grew up in, like all of that kind of stuff, as far as like trying to understand who and what I was. And so that's the things that built my construct in my mind that then creates the
self-dialogue. Yeah.
I feel like we call that another word, right? The commentator.
Yeah, the commentator when we get into level 4 and 5.
Right.
Yeah.
What about you? What's your experience been with that?
Oh, well, I wasn't ready for that.
Oh. You were going to talk more about me?
I will. Well, I'll come back to me in just a minute.
Okay.
But it is intriguing to me how as our culture and our society is kind of changing, where a lot of our identity is coming from. And so as you're describing that, even the evolution of the checkout, which most of us aren't even in the checkouts anymore.
Anyway,
we're either
doing
self-check, or we're doing all these other
Amazon.
things, or Amazon. So, but how that was the evolution of where our checkpoints are. But the part I think that's really important to you out there watching or listening is how subtle and subconscious it is.
Yes.
And I really want you to key into how a lot of your self-identity and where you're getting your inner dialogue or your commentator from is so subtle you're not aware.
Yes.
And what I'm proposing is, over this next holiday opportunity, that you really start to pay attention to where all of that information is coming in. And as Kate would say, don't judge it, just look at it with curiosity. Don't go, oh, great, it's this person, or it's, oh, great, Aunt Margaret said this again, and now I feel this. Just go, well, isn't that interesting? Aunt Margaret said that, and it really made me wonder if I'm wearing the right blouse.
Right.
Or if I'm, if they think my kids are horrible.
Right.
So just say, isn't that interesting? And really, this is an opportunity. This season is a real opportunity. And the reason we're talking about it is because this tends to be a time where we have the most interaction with family, if we're lucky. And that's when our inner dialogue is going to heat up, is when we're around the most intimate relationships we have in our lives. So as you said, your touch points, or your reference points, I should say, that you created growing up through your life have come from that foundation. Now it's becoming aware of how is that impacting what you're hearing and how it's affecting what you're saying to yourself. And so circling back to for my piece, a lot of mine growing up, like I said, we didn't have a ton of that type of media coming at us as young people, but we did have a lot of it was starting. The body dysmorphia stuff was starting, and I know for me personally, it was very much, looking at Arnold Schwarzenegger, looking at Sylvester Stallone, looking at Bruce Willis. It was a lot of the macho. It was a lot of the tough guy, the manly, then even to some degree on the back end, Vin Diesel and the Fast and Furiouses and all of these things. But also it was the ability to protect and provide and be relevant that way. And so I know for a lot of the experiences that I had, it was about being a provider. It was about being a father. It was about how my children were showing up in public and how they were acting and what my families thought about them, what they thought about me as a parent. And all of those things. I remember as a young father, very young father, my oldest daughter we couldn't console her one night. We were at my folks up in Salt Lake, and my brother had to come in. It was like 2 or 3 in the morning, came in and took my baby. He's like, "Here, let me help." And even at that moment, it was that moment where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a horrible father. I can't even console my own child. She's keeping everybody up. So those reference points as a young father still to this day are things that I remember, and I know that they impacted me. But as you put it so well, fortunately, when I started down this path and got going into it really about 25, 30 years ago, it was the ahas and more kindness and more recognizing that how my children show up in the world is not a reflection of me as a parent. It's a reflection of their personalities and who they want to become. It has nothing to do with me other than I provided a foundation. Whether they accept or reject is on them. So there's a lot of growth that we can put into these things. However, those old ghosts still haunt, those old beliefs still there. But those are some of the things. And so when you start having this opportunity, I would just challenge us all to be aware.
Yes, that's exactly the very first place that I was thinking of. Where do we start to really begin to get those things to change, right? And the first place is in awareness.
Right.
And then, like you so beautifully said, awareness, and then just getting curious about it, right? Like, oh, isn't that interesting? And just putting some pins in places. Sometimes I think of this whole workings in the mind and working to shift things and not going down your same destructive patterns and shifting over to something that's more healthy, more intentional, creating what you want to be experienced. Because all the things are leading in that direction, right? But it all begins up here. Like in movies when they're like trying to solve some case or like a cold case, right? And they've got like the photos up on the pin board and they've got the push pins and a string leading over here, right? Like it's just the discovery time of it. And that's a perfect place to start. Awareness and discovery. And you'll start to connect some dots and see things and then be able to eventually start shifting that. So that you're experiencing something different, that you don't just automatically move down a lightning bolt that isn't healthy and doesn't
accurate.
Right.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I know I think we're close on time.
This is going to be a 4-part conversation.
Is it?
Absolutely. Okay. We are only on discovery. We're only on awareness.
Well, the challenge I would give us is to really just become aware. Start to become and use that curiosity. As always, my favorite coping skill, which is acceptance. And really to get in that space of acceptance and not have expectations of this is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong, but what am I learning? What am I going to do about it? Type of information. And as you move forward, it is going to be a wonderful holiday season for everybody. we just need to let go. We need to just enjoy and experiment and experience. And I think that's the most important thing that I would challenge you with, that we would challenge you with from Turning Leaf, is this holiday, let go. Yeah. Experiment and experience are the two most powerful things we can do. This life is nothing more than an experiment. You're here just processing life as it comes. There's no pass or fail. There's no right or wrong. Mm-hmm. You know, at the end of this life, as the light begins to dim, you're not left with a passing grade or a failing grade. You're not left with, you know, you did a horrible job or you did an amazing job. There's no big giant banquet at the very end where they give you a plaque and a Golden Globe award. There's just a life that you have lived. And if you can live that life without self-judgment, if you can live that life in acceptance, and you can allow yourself to flow what is truly and naturally into who you are, then life becomes an amazing experience and experiment. So I challenge you this holiday to just experience and experiment as it flows.
Yes, absolutely. So there is absolutely nothing else to add to that. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Good job. So once again, like I led with in the beginning, we wish you a very happy holiday and just presence and beauty in your experience as you move forward throughout this next week. We will see you next Tuesday Night Live.
Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.